Welcome to the City of Bellevue Regular Council Meeting for June 11th, 2024. Deputy Clerk, could you do the roll call, please?
Mayor Robinson?
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Malakutian has been excused from tonight's meeting. Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Lee has also been excused from tonight's meeting. Councilmember Neuenhouse?
Here.
Councilmember Stokes?
Here.
And Councilmember Zahn has also been excused from tonight's meeting.
Okay, Councilmember Stokes, could you please lead us in the flag salute?
Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have 3 proclamations tonight. The first one is Pride Month proclamation being read by Councilmember Hamilton and accepted by Eastside Pride Pacific Northwest Kenby NB. And then next we'll have the Juneteenth proclamation read by Councilmember Neuenhouse and accepted by my friend Regina Glenn. And the third one is World Elder Abuse Awareness Day proclamation that I will read, and that will be accepted by Ann Rittenhouse, who's the chair of the Bellevue Network on Aging. So we'll go ahead, do the proclamations, have the person who wants to speak to it speak, and we'll get through all 3 of them, and then we'll do pictures one by one. So we'll start with Pride Month. Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer or questioning, and non-binary, LGBTQIA+ communities of Bellevue are an integral part of the vibrancy of our city and continue to have an immeasurable impact on the academic, economic, artistic, cultural, civic, and social spheres within and around our community. And whereas the month of June is designated Pride Month to commemorate the Stonewall riots, which occurred in June 1969 and are generally recognized as the catalyst of the LGBTQIA+ rights movement, and whereas celebrating Pride Month provides visibility, support, and advocacy for the LGBTQIA+ community, and is an opportunity to recognize that further progress and action are needed to build acceptance and advance equity for all, and whereas LGBTQIA+ rights are human rights, and the City of Bellevue believes in upholding the dignity of individuals, supporting legal equality for all people, and ensuring acts of discrimination and hatred are not tolerated, and whereas people from Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities who also identify as LGBTQIA+ are disproportionately impacted by high rates of violence, mental health struggles, isolation, and homelessness, with 1 in 3 transgender adults experiencing homelessness in their lifetime, and whereas, in solidarity with the LGBTQIA+ community, the City of Bellevue installed a Pride-themed artwork in a downtown intersection, will be flying Pride flags at many city-owned facilities during the month of June, partners on Pride events in the community, and works with community partners to place Pride banners in downtown corridors. Now, therefore, I, Dave Hamilton, on behalf of Lynn Robinson, Mayor of the City of Bellevue, Washington, and on behalf of its City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2024 as Pride Month in Bellevue and reaffirm our commitment to standing in solidarity with LGBTQIA+ residents against ongoing discrimination and injustice as we celebrate the meaningful, long-lasting impacts of this community on Bellevue's rich and diverse history and culture.
Great. Is Kenby here? Hi there.
Hello. Good. My name is Kenby Enby, also known as Mix Kenby at Family Friendly Events. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I'm queer, trans non-binary, a Bellevue resident, and a local drag artist here on the east side. As someone who lives in Bellevue and made their drag debut in Bellevue, I'm honored to accept this Pride Proclamation on behalf of myself, my drag family, and my local queer community. I've lived in Bellevue for over 4 years now. I love Bellevue. It's my home. Although I love living here, it can sometimes feel defeating being a member of the queer community in this city. Here in Bellevue, we are very culturally diverse. It is one of the things I love about living here. It is great to see all the various cultural events hosted at places like Bellevue Downtown Park, Bellevue Square, and Bellevue Crossroads. However, it wasn't until last year that I, as a member of the queer community, felt seen and supported here in Bellevue through one of these local events with the introduction of Bellevue Pause and Pride. It brought me so much joy to participate in Bellevue Pause and Pride again this year at Bellevue Downtown Park at a location even more visible than last year. I'm thankful to the City of Bellevue for this Pride Proclamation, for hosting Bellevue Pause and Pride, and for the new art crosswalk outside Bellevue Downtown Park. This is a step in the right direction. However, I would like to recognize we still have much progress to make. I've only seen one street near Bellevue Arts Museum that has pride flags hanging from the street posts, whereas with other cultural events, I have seen all of Bellevue Square decorated head to toe. In addition, my drag family and I have been trying to hold free events for our local queer community, such as drag story time and free drag workshops for the community. We are constantly turned down by local businesses and Bellevue community spaces. I'm constantly being asked by members of the queer community when they can access these free resources again. And I have to tell them we are struggling to provide these services at this time because we do not have a venue that's willing to work with us. But hopefully we will someday soon. There is so much misinformation spread about drag. We are politicized, we are villainized, we are overly sexualized, and thus the free services we tried to provide to this community are shut down left and right. The art form of drag is so vast, like any form of entertainment, movies, books, music, etc. There is family-friendly drag and there is adult drag. To group all drag together is wildly misinformed. I want to take this opportunity to combat that misconception and say that above all else, drag is community, drag is advocacy, drag is visibility, and drag is queer joy. I'm hoping that my moment of visibility here today, with you today will help the City of Bellevue take a step in the right direction with more inclusion of queer events, including drag events. Thank you for your time and attention, and thank you for this proclamation of pride.
Thank you so much. Go ahead and sit down, and we're here in the audience, and then when it's time for picture, we'll call you up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have a Juneteenth proclamation read by Councilmember Newhouse.
Thank you. Honored to read this proclamation tonight. Whereas Juneteenth is a historic milestone and the oldest recognized celebration observing the freedom of Black Americans and enslavement in the United States following the conclusion of the Civil War. And whereas on June 19th, 1865, nearly 9 decades after our nation's founding, and more than 2 years after President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, the last enslaved Americans in Galveston, Texas, finally received word that they were free from bondage. And whereas a celebration of Juneteenth honors the millions of Africans who did not survive the brutal voyage to the Americas and the millions more who were stripped of their humanity and forced into slavery over a period of more than 200 years in the U.S., and whereas the impact of those bonds and legacies of enslavement on Black Americans continues in our social and political and economic fabric today, creating many ongoing barriers. And whereas the City of Bellevue honors Black members of our community who contribute to the spirit, culture, and vibrancy of our region, who recognizes the many people who have worked to raise awareness for the history of African Americans as an important part of our national history. And whereas Bellevue is committed to cultivating awareness through the city's 3rd annual Honoring Juneteenth at City Hall on June 13th at 6 p.m. and by flying the Juneteenth flag at City Hall from June 18th until June 30th. Now, therefore, I, on behalf of Lynn Robinson, Mayor of the City of Bellevue, Washington, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim June 19th, 2024 as Juneteenth in Bellevue, Washington, recognizing its historical importance and calling on our community to join us, embracing a commitment to continued reflection and action in advance of equity, inclusion, and justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Regina Glenn. I've been a 25-year resident of the City of Bellevue. former president of the Newport Hills Community Club, been a business owner and very active with our city, been on the advisory, continue to be on the advisory board for the Seattle Police Department. It is a pleasure to talk about the significance of Juneteenth. What is the significance of Juneteenth? Also known as Freedom Day or Emancipation Day, it's a holiday commemorating the emancipation of enslaved African Americans in the United States. The significance of Juneteenth lies in its recognition of the struggles and achievements of African Americans in their quest for freedom and equality. It serves as a reminder of the resiliency and perseverance of those who fought for the rights and acknowledgement of the injustices they faced. By celebrating Juneteenth, we honor the legacy of those who paved the way for future generations and highlight the ongoing fight for racial equality and justice. Furthermore, Juneteenth offers an opportunity for reflection and education on the history of slavery and the legacy of racism in America. It provides a platform for discussion of the lasting impact of slavery and the systemic oppressions placed on African Americans and the importance of confronting and addressing these issues in order to create a more equitable society. In conclusion, the celebration of Juneteenth is significant because, one, it acknowledges the struggles and triumphs of African Americans in the fight for freedom and equality. Two, it provides an opportunity for reflection, education, and dialogue on how to overcome the history of slavery and racism in America. Third, it honors the past. Fourth, it celebrates progress. And finally, it reaffirms our commitment, the City of Bellevue, our community, our joint commitment to building a more just and equitable society for all. I appreciate the proclamation, and this is the beginning of the dialogue that must continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Go ahead and have a seat, and then we'll call you up for a picture. Next up, we have World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, and I'm going to read that. I was a proud member of the Bellevue Network on Aging for a number of years, and very proud to work with people who are still working with it today when I was there. And hi, Ann. Thank you for being here today. I'm going to go ahead and read the proclamation first. Whereas World Elder Abuse Awareness Day was established in 2006 to encourage public awareness and action against elder abuse, and whereas Bellevue's older adults are valued members of the society, and it is our collective responsibility to ensure they live safely and with dignity, and whereas abuse of older adults is a tragedy inflicted on a growing number of vulnerable populations and crosses all socioeconomic boundaries, and whereas combating abuse of older adults will help improve quality of life and will allow older adults to continue to live as independently as possible, and whereas Bellevue's older adults should be treated with respect and dignity to enable them to continue serving as leaders, mentors, volunteers, and important and active members of this community. Now therefore, I, Lynn Robinson, Mayor of the City of Bellevue, Washington, and on behalf of its City Council, do hereby proclaim June 15th, 2024 as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Bellevue, and urge everyone to commit to building safer communities for our aging residents.
Thank you. I'm filling in for Anne, who unfortunately was unable to make it due to illness. My name is Andrea Klein, and I'm a member of the Bellevue Network on Aging. On behalf of the BNOA, I would like to thank you for your proclamation honoring World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, which is June 15th. In Washington State, elder abuse is covered by RCW 74.34, a statute entitled Abuse of Vulnerable Adults. Elder abuse describes a range of behaviors, including physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, financial exploitation, confinement and neglect, and willful deprivation and self-neglect. Elder abuse occurs in private homes, in institutional settings, such as nursing homes or assisted living facilities, and within businesses in the community. Such abuse is often perpetuated by a known, trusted person, such as an adult child, grandchild, or spouse. A 2021 National Council on Aging report showed that in almost 60% of elder abuse and neglect incidents, the person responsible is a family member. In 2022, Adult Protective Services here in Washington State had 65,833 reports of abuse. Signs of adult abuse include suspicious or unexplainable bruises, sores, or weight loss, changes in normal personality, neglect or inattention to hygiene, food, medication, or home, and unexplainable financial charges and changes or missing money. Unfortunately, senior abuse is underreported. A victim may not report abuse for varied reasons, such as inability to make the report, fear of retaliation, concern that a report will send the abuser to jail, or fear that reporting will lead to the victim being placed in a nursing home. Elder abuse will not stop unless there is awareness and unless it is reported. Useful information on elder abuse in Washington State, including elder abuse prevention, is available on the websites of the King County Prosecutor's Office, the Washington Attorney General, Washington Law Help, and of course, Adult Protective Services. To report elder abuse in an emergency, dial 911. Otherwise, phone Adult Protective Services at 1-877-734-6277. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you so much. Is there anybody else on the Bellevue Network on Aging who wants to take a picture with us? I know we have Dan Lassiter. Approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, City Clerk, do we have anybody signed up for oral communications?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This evening, there are 5 pre-registered speakers. So before I start calling names, I'll go over a few of the rules that council has put in place for oral communications. So the time period is for no more than 30 minutes total, and the topics must relate to City of Bellevue government. People speaking to items on tonight's agenda will be called first, and then if time remains, people speaking on items not on tonight's agenda will be called. And the presiding officer is authorized in both of those categories to give preference to those who have not spoken to council within the last 60 days, or who will be speaking on an item that will come in front of council within the next 60 days. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes to speak, and only 3 speakers are allowed to speak to any one side of a particular topic. So with that, I will call our first speaker, who is Christopher Randalls, who is joining us virtually. Mr. Randalls, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
We can. Your time begins now.
Excellent. Good evening, Mayor Robinson, council members, and staff. Chris Randalls with Complete Streets Bellevue, speaking in strong support of your action tonight to advance funding work for the Rapid Ride K line. When service begins in 2030, riders will enjoy fast, frequent, and direct service from Totem Lake, downtown Kirkland, downtown Bellevue, Gate Park and Road, connecting residences, economic centers, community destinations, and so on. Helping this line be the best it can be by serving the most riders with
Hey,
high quality.
Christopher, I'm going to
Yes?
stop you for 1 second. You're fading in and out, and you might be on like a dying headset or something. Is it possible to make a change?
Is this any better, perchance?
So far, let's try it.
All right, let's try it. Let me resume. Yes. We need, apologies. Helping this line be the best it can be by riders with high quality transit will mean infrastructure improvements make bus riding more convenient, accessible to more people. To support these goals, staff have developed a guiding principles that will serve as a North Star during this process, always returning discussions to the need for efficient, convenient, and direct service. Our organization would like to express our strong support to these guiding principles as they clearly outline the importance of encouraging high ridership through the creation of and support for a high quality transit product. Infrastructure improvements to support fast and direct service will be critical to the K Line's success. The staff have drafted language that addresses this need. However, we do believe that further amendments could make these priorities even stronger and better align this planning initiative with previous council priorities. CSB submitted a letter to your body yesterday evening outlining our proposed amendments, so I will only briefly highlight them. But first, we
Mr.
believe language.
Randalls.
Yes.
Mr. Randalls, I apologize. We're having an extremely hard time hearing you. It is fading in and out. Is it possible for you? I know you have sent some written comments. I would suggest if you could disconnect and then reconnect to the call, I'll try and admit you again.
I will
think
try
that
that.
would
Thank
be
you.
better. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, that takes us to our second speaker, which is Matt Jack, who is also virtual. Mr. Jack, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you. Your time begins now.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Robinson, council members. My name is Matt Jack, and I'm commenting on behalf of the Bellevue Downtown Association in support of the city's participation in the Rapid Ride K-Line planning process. The objectives of the K-Line project and the draft guiding principles align with the BDA's downtown access strategy and strategic plan goals in support of a complete and connected multimodal system. Some of the benefits to call out include, regarding the project, it enhances transportation network connectivity with a rapid ride program, making public transit a more competitively viable as a mode between Bellevue and Kirkland. It, secondly, promotes sustainable growth and economic activity by offering another public transit option that can reduce the reliance on personal vehicles and help manage traffic congestion. Regarding participation, it will help. It includes a community engagement process in the King County's Phase 2, which will ensure a diversity of input is gathered so that good decisions can be informed by the public. And secondly and lastly, it strengthens partnerships by being at the table. Bellevue should lead as a reliable jurisdiction in regional planning efforts. We appreciate the City Council taking up this topic, and we're eager to hear your thoughts tonight. Thank you for your time, leadership, and attention.
Okay, thank you. And I do see Mr. Randalls back in, so we will try this one more time. Mr. Randalls, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Is this any better quality?
100%. Your time begins now.
Excellent. So I apologize. Should I start from the beginning?
We heard you about halfway through, actually, and then it started really
Halfway through
getting
sounds
bad.
good. Thank you, Mayor. CSB submitted a letter to your body yesterday evening outlining our proposed amendments, so I will only briefly highlight them here. But first, we believe language can be incorporated to more explicitly enshrine reliability as a key priority. More people will ride transit when they can count on the trip being fast and convenient at all times of day. Second, to mirror principle number 4, focusing on regional connections with other transit lines, more explicit language can be added to underscore the city's leadership role and responsibility to ensure safe pedestrian and bicycle connections to stations. Planning for the Rapid Ride K Line should use city plans and financial resources for bicycle and pedestrian improvements to identify opportunities for synergy with implemented transit infrastructure. Finally, although tonight's focus is understandably on the Rapid Ride K Line, we believe that existing transit service, like the Rapid Ride B line, could also benefit from such values-driven, intentional infrastructure planning. To take the B line as an example, without dedicated transit infrastructure, performance and speed of the line vary significantly depending on the time of day, which negatively impacts the rider experience and likely encourages some to choose a car instead. We asked Bellevue to continue its productive relationship with King County Metro by approving these principles with amendments, and proactively identifying other opportunities to improve transit service in our community through intentional investments in transit infrastructure. Thank you for your time, and I apologize again for the technical issues, but I appreciate y'all's patience.
Thank you for trying again. Thank you. The next speaker on the list is Cameron Cast.
Sure.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cameron Cast. I reside, work, and commute in Bellevue. Some of you that know me know that I probably commute a lot by bike, but I am also a frequent transit rider in our area, and I'm committed to advocating for the most effective implementation of transit service, and I'm here to express my support for the upcoming planning efforts related to the Rapid Ride K line. The principles proposed by the staff serve as a solid foundation for this planning work. However, I believe we can further enhance these principles by incorporating language that specifically emphasizes feasibility, reliability, and local connections. Fast, dependable transit is absolutely essential to encouraging ridership in our area. I urge you to prioritize this language that ensures the reliability and consistency of transit travel within the plan. And by doing so, we can create an attractive and efficient transit system that benefits all travelers. When this service launches in 2030, riders will experience a swift and direct connection between Kirkland and Bellevue. This not only reduces congestion in the area, but also contributes to lower greenhouse gas emissions in our region and provides a more equitable and sustainable transit connection and transportation plan in our region. Thank you all for your continued commitment to a safe, sustainable, and equitable Bellevue, and I look forward to seeing what you do.
Thank you. So City Clerk, even though we've had 3 in support, I've heard 2 recommendations that are unique, and so I consider those unique comments.
Thank you. The next speaker is Carol Simpson.
Good evening, Mayor Robinson, Carol Simpson. I live in the Vineyards neighborhood in Newcastle. I'm also a former Newcastle City Council member from 2008 to 2019. I am coming to comment in response to the King County action allowing e-bikes on public trails, and some of those trails pass through Bellevue. My brother-in-law, Jim Gordon, 63, was killed by an electric bike on a Marin County trail in California on August 31st, 2022. He was walking home in the early evening on that trail after having a beer at a local restaurant. His home, a nearby houseboat, was just yards from where he was hit by an electric bike and left unconscious on the trail. His brain died, and so did he. It was a traumatic experience, a huge loss for his wife, his father, age 94, his mother, age 92, his 2 sisters and his brother, his nieces, nephews, grandniece, and nephew. His wife is still adjusting to her loss of the love of her life, her income, her companion. She still lives in the houseboat which borders that trail, their first home ever purchased that same year. She still sees the walkers and bikes passing by. I don't know how she does that. The e-bike rider was identified as a commuter, age 40. He sustained injuries and lived. Ironically, he went to the same hospital where the EMS ambulance took Jim. A police investigation did not yield enough evidence to support the prosecutor bringing criminal charges against him. Electric bikes do not belong on paved pedestrian trails, period. Bikes can go too fast, and they're too heavy. We do not want anyone to go through what my husband's family endured: the sudden death of a loved one, the immense grief, loss of a son, a husband, an uncle, a thoughtful author, a valued library employee. He didn't live to collect his pension, see his home completed, publish his novels, celebrate more Christmases with his nieces and nephews who love their Uncle Jim. His wife doesn't get to enjoy her retirement years with Jim. Concerns have been raised about children and the elderly on trails with bicycles. Jim was a full-grown, physically fit adult man, and he was killed by an electric bike. Obviously, electric bikes do not belong with children and older adults who cannot jump out of the way. I can't jump out of the way. Jim could have, but he didn't get the opportunity. Please adopt a no electric bikes policy on Bellevue shared pedestrian trails. Please urge King County to reverse their rule allowing electric bikes on paved urban trails. Electric bikes can kill people. Thank you.
Thank you for coming down.
The final speaker on our pre-registered list is Sue Mercer.
Good evening, Council. We have to be very grateful that we live in Bellevue and not in Jamaica. We have few potholes here, but I'm keen to speak to the traffic people again about traffic lights and how they give enough time for the traffic to pass through and finish filling the potholes on Southeast 22nd, which becomes Southeast 24th at 156. They promised to resurface that 2 years ago, supposed to be done in April this year, and they've got the potholes pretty well done, but not the part around the manhole covers. They've done it in a lot of other places. We have such nice streets here compared to Jamaica. And if you guys have any buses that you're putting out of commission, Jamaica needs them desperately. Their buses do not have handicap sections in the front. It was very difficult for me to get up and down the stairs that they have there. So I don't know what you do with your buses that are replaced by bigger and better ones, but I'm sure that we have some that could go to some third world country that could use them. The other issue is mental health. Nobody got a hold of me while I was gone to let me know how the people that I've housed are currently doing and that they are still under care. So what have you done while I've been gone to make sure that we have good mental health facilities right here in our community, that these people can be taken care of on an outpatient basis as well as an inpatient basis? That's a question. You can get back to me. You got my email. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. City Manager, can you have staff get back to her on a couple of things that the traffic, the road repaving, and then the mental health, local mental health care?
Yes, Ms. Mercer, we will get back to you on those two questions.
Thank you.
That is the end of our pre-registered list. So at this point, I would ask if there is anyone else joining us this evening, either virtually or in chambers, who would like to make a comment to the council. Please raise your hand. Okay, I see no hands, Mayor. I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, great. Next up is the report of the city manager, and you have 2 items. Go ahead, Ms. Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I am very pleased to welcome Josh Brown here tonight. He's the Executive Director of Puget Sound Regional Council. He and Emil King, our Community Development Director, are here to share some good news about the 2024 PSRC Vision 2050 Award that the city received for our Bellevue 24 Building a Livable City for All, which was our community engagement strategy that was used this year for and last year for the comprehensive plan periodic update. I also want to recognize that we have a few staff members in the audience: Tara Johnson, who's our acting planning director, and Brooke Broad, our community engagement lead. And the work of Tara and Brooke to design and implement this engagement strategy was really key to the success of it and also the award. So with that, I will hand it off to Emil.
Thank you for that introduction, City Manager. And good evening, Mayor and members of Council. I'm going to offer up some brief remarks and then hand it over to Executive Director Brown. On behalf of staff, I just want to say that the City of Bellevue is truly honored to receive this recognition. It was supported by staff across our whole city organization, while it was led by staff in community development. Puget Sound Regional Council is a key partner as we look to plan for not only Bellevue, but this region, and it's wonderful to have Executive Director Brown here tonight. It's really satisfying to receive this award for community engagement as we've been doing our city's comprehensive plan periodic update. We've been able to both enhance and expand our engagement efforts with really a focus on furthering equity and innovation as we've been doing it. We're thankful to both PSRC for the award and especially to the community for their time and thoughtful engagement in our planning work to date. So with that, I want to hand things over to Executive Director Brown.
All right, excellent. Mayor, members of the council, members of the public, thanks for having me today. I'm Josh Brown, Executive Director of the Puget Sound Regional Council. For those of you who aren't familiar with my agency, we're a 4-county planning agency responsible for the region's long-term vision for a sustainable future through transportation growth, economic development, policymaking. I'm here with you today to recognize Bellevue for your 2044 community engagement process with the Vision 2050 Award. What's a Vision 2050 Award? Well, a Vision 2050 Award is our way of recognizing incredible work that's happening around the region that helps to realize our collective vision of a thriving, racially equitable, and sustainable Central Puget Sound region through leadership, visionary planning, and collaboration. And as Emil just stated, your work that's specifically being recognized is in our Planning Ahead category, and it's an outstanding example of bringing the community together to create a strong, representative future for everyone. The community engagement process developed for Bellevue 2044 set out to hear from everyone in your diversity. You were successful using a combination of traditional outreach methods with creative new approaches, achieving a large and meaningful response rate. And we're especially impressed with your work using community liaisons that built strong partnerships that continue to provide insights into the city's work long into the future. The extensive use of translation options also resulted in a greater diversity of participants. You should be very proud of your work. It's outstanding. I think we all know in government, community engagement is one of the areas that we all need to get better at. So congratulations to the great work by your city staff and the support for the council. Thanks.
Thank you so much for coming to present this and for recognizing the staff work. I know they've done a lot of work to do this. Can we do a group picture, Diane, and then we'll come back to your next item? Okay, let's do that. And then City Manager, you have another item under your
Yes.
report?
Thank you, Mayor. Council, you may recall that Bellevue's Conflict Resolution Center, or BCRC, was the official provider of the eviction resolution pilot program for Bellevue and Kirkland. And that program came to an end in 2023 based on the state discontinuing the program. Tonight, staff will be sharing information about the new Housing Accord program. It's a voluntary program to continue to support housing stability for landlords and tenants. And from the Community Development Department, we have Marcy McReynolds, Conflict Resolution Center Manager, and Julia Devlin, Housing Accord Program Coordinator. And with that, I will hand it off to Marcy.
Thank you, Acting City Manager Carlson. And good evening, Mayor Lynn Robinson and council members. I am Marcy McReynolds, and this is Julia Devon. And we are really happy to be here with you this evening. We're going to share with you how we plan to help keep renters housed and landlords made whole through our Housing Accord program. And you may remember, as was mentioned by City Manager Carlson, that during the pandemic, we successfully implemented the eviction resolution program where we worked with 2,800 households to help them stay housed and with their landlords. But first, just a little update about, reminder about the Conflict Resolution Program, or BCRC as we call it. Oh yes, we need to move through the slides, thank you. I thought that was happening, hold on, there we go. It's not happening, there we go, thank you, Julia. Now I think we go down. It's not happening, thank you, where we go? There we go. Okay. Oh, you have to turn it on. Operator malfunction. Okay. So this is just for information only. Oh, that's the wrong slide. We are all mixed up here. Okay, I'm going to be dancing around here. We have quite an interesting array of slides. I'm going to go back up here and try to find slides, and meanwhile I'll do a tap dance. We are all over the place. I'm trying to find our slides. It's not, how about if we just share with you what we're going to share? Because I'm just going to go on and talk about what we do. The Bellevue Conflict Resolution Center, well, our main job is to put out people fires and to teach people how to put out their own. And our mission is to build the problem-solving capacity among the people who live, work, and go to school in Bellevue and Kirkland. We have an MOU with Kirkland. And we have many partners in the community. We work with Arch, we work with HopeLink, a lot of rental assistance agencies, King County Library, and we also have a major partnership with Resolution Washington, which is a professional and funding organization, a consortium of 22 dispute resolution centers across the state. And during the eviction, well, for 20 years, we have worked with landlords and tenants, helping them with issues that they have with rentals. And during the ERPP, or Eviction Resolution Program, we were on steroids learning how to work with landlords and tenants and helping them be made whole and work out all sorts of issues, which prepared us mightily for the Housing Accord Program, which is voluntary. And I am going to introduce Julia Devon, who's going to tell you more about the Housing Accord Program. And we'll figure out our slides, right?
Thank you. I appreciate your time. And I'm really excited to be here to talk about this program because I think it's a great follow-on to the work we did previously and that Bellevue Conflict Resolution has done for years. But the purpose, as has been stated, of the Housing Accord Program is really to empower landlords and tenants to resolve their own conflicts and to build stronger communities, all with the goal, hopefully, of increasing housing stability. And we know it's only one niche, but it's a good one that really builds on these relationships. So we have several different areas and services we provide as part of this. The first is that we really work with landlords and tenants or individual housing providers to help them resolve conflicts. So that could be like there was in the ERPP, past rent that's due, but now we're expanding it to maintenance issues or tenant-to-tenant conflicts that erupt in neighbor-to-neighbor kind of things, and lease violations, all sorts of things. It remains voluntary, free, confidential, all the same hallmarks that we work with as conciliators. And then secondly, we continue to provide referrals, and that's to legal assistance or to rental assistance and community organizations. There's a lot of tenants that still need social services. And then because we're the city, we have a lot of connections here, and so we get to provide city services and referrals, whether it's to utilities or transportation, and help people resolve some of the issues they might need with that. We also offer workshops to landlords and tenants, and to the community in general around these issues. We have offered them, Marcy in particular, in communication and difficult conversations. One that's been really popular with landlords and housing providers is de-escalation, because they're often kind of on the front line of having to deal with difficult situations for tenants. And so then a listening workshop as well has been really popular. And then finally, we're working to strengthen connections within those communities by working with them in a very participatory manner in a pilot project that we're calling Be Connected. And that's really to facilitate collaboration and work with them around shared needs that they've identified and create common opportunities for common ground and how they might come together to value where they live more and participate more in the management of that. And so our next steps, we've been building relationships and building on the ones we had established with both housing providers and tenants, and now reaching out more and more to some of the organizations, community organizations that we established some relationships with previously. We're also mentoring volunteers. BCRC has about 25 that have now been trained in conciliation and particularly now on landlord-tenant issues and housing issues. And so they're great conciliators that really keep this program going as well. And then training landlords, and then our Be Connected pilot that's very exciting that we're starting in one housing community just to see if that helps with the housing stability. So our next steps, I'll let Marcy tell you about.
Yeah, can you, since I have operator malfunctions. So this is how to get in touch with us. There's we can do a web form at bellevuewa.gov/resolve, and then email us at bcrc@bellevuewa.gov. or call us at 425-452-4091. And that closes our presentation. Thank you for listening.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate you coming down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next up, we have an excused absence request by Councilmember Neuenhuis for June 18th, 2024. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move to excuse Councilmember Neuenhuis from the June 18th, 2024 City Council regular meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have 3 study session items coming up. Just going to see if we should, I think we'll go ahead and start with, see how long the first one goes, maybe take a break between some of these. But thank you, Andrew. Go ahead, City Manager. if you'd
Thank you,
like to
Mayor.
introduce us.
So we are joined by guests from King County Metro tonight for this next item. They're here to provide an overview and update on the Rapid Ride K line, which will connect Bellevue and Kirkland. And to guide the city's work in this next phase, the staff are seeking council's consideration and direction on draft guiding principles that are intended to be used to represent our local needs and ensure the city's transit interests are effectively represented in the K-line planning. So we have Andrew Singalakis, our transportation director, and from the city manager's office, Lacey Jane Wolf, our policy advisor. And from Metro, I would like to introduce Pierce Kanzer, expansion and integration supervisor, Yuvia Ellison Morales, their senior community engagement planner, and Amanda Pleasant Brown, government relations and jurisdictional lead. And then we also have Ryan Walker in the audience, who's the K-line lead, in case there are any questions for him. And with that, I'll hand it over to Andrew to kick off the presentation.
Oh, thank you, City Manager Carlson, Mayor Robinson, and City Council. As you know, the Bellevue City Council has adopted a really bold transportation vision in the past. Bellevue's adopted frequent transit network is a key part of the city's strategy to accommodate growth. We saw a big part of that vision actualize with the opening of the number 2 starter line a few weeks ago. But another major piece of our frequent transit network will be implemented through the K-line. As Diane mentioned, the K-line was last before the council back in 2019 and was very supportive of it. But unfortunately, due to COVID, there was a delay in the project, but I'm really happy to report that it's back. And I'm really happy to be sitting here with King County Metro staff. Pierce, Uvea, and Amanda from Metro will tell you more about the project, and then after that, we will go and talk about the guiding principles. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda.
Thank you so much. Hi there, Madam Mayor and council members. Thank you so much for having us here this evening. We're really excited to talk with you about the project, to talk with you about next steps in our process and go over the community engagement. We encourage you to ask questions. We want to make sure that you and your community are fully informed. And we want to just have a special thanks to Bellevue staff. We've been working really diligently, meeting regularly, and they have dedicated, concerted staff resources, and they have done a really good job of informing us about your council priorities and ensuring that those are carried out throughout our planning process. So I'll hand it over to my colleague, Pierce Cancer, who will start us off on the presentation.
All right. Good evening, council members, Mayor Robinson. My name is Pierce Cancer. I'm here in my capacity as King County Metro's Rapid Ride Program Director, and really ecstatic to reintroduce this body to the Rapid Ride K-Line project.
It's not you.
All right. So, Rapid Ride K-Line. So Rapid Ride, what is Rapid Ride? I think you all know a little bit about Rapid Ride. We have the Rapid Ride B line here currently running between the Overlake area and downtown Bellevue. So Rapid Ride really represents Metro's highest level of investment in service, facilities, and passenger comfort. It's about fast, frequent, and reliable service at the end of the day. We do that by providing show up and go service, service so frequent that you shouldn't have to look at a schedule. In doing so, we aim to take our existing travel times that we have on predecessor routes and cut those down tremendously. So with our Rapid Ride standards that we've been now rolling out, and the Rapid Ride K-Line is aspiring to this as well, we want our passengers to be able to experience travel time savings of 15 to 30% over what they are doing previously. And that's shown to be a really proven success factor in increasing ridership. If you look at our Rapid Ride H line, which opened between the communities of Burien, Delridge, and downtown Seattle last year, we had a year-over-year increase of about 30% ridership simply by implementing this suite of packages. So we're really excited to bring that same level of treatment and investment to the Bellevue community and also to Kirkland with the K-Line. We currently have 7 different Rapid Ride lines, and we are actively working with community partners and city partners to expand 5 more over the next 6 years. And Rapid K-Line is one of our key priorities. So a little bit about the project history. As was mentioned earlier, we previously started this project back in 2019, and we got through some initial planning to figure out high-level alignment options like where it's going to go, some ideas about where it would stop and things like that. However, 2020 happened, and I don't need to really elaborate what happened then. And so we were unfortunately had our budget eliminated in our 2021-2022 budget cycle. And following that, we worked very closely with our partners in both cities of Kirkland and Bellevue to really document how much the work that we had done prior to the pause and really identified a roadmap for success in the future. Thankfully, with the 2023 and 2024 King County Council budget process, we worked with the King County Executive, Council, and our city partners to really reestablish the K-Line in that budget. At the current phase, which is still very early, we're picking back up from where we paused, and we are currently have the Rapid Ride K-Line in our 10-year financial plan at about $120 million investment, and we're currently aiming for a 2030 delivery. So a little bit about the project. It's an 18-mile long corridor. It really, Rapid Ride is really, you can view it as an extension of our high-capacity transit network, going to the places that light rail can't quite go. And so it's really providing fast, frequent, reliable connections to that regional transit system. And the Rapid Ride K-Line in its alignment and with the suite of the package of improvements that we're looking to make really brings that to fruition. It's connecting major regional growth centers like Totem Lake, downtown Kirkland, downtown Bellevue, going through Wilburton, which is seeing a tremendous amount of growth and planned for even future growth. And of course, serving key destinations such as like Bellevue College and the Eastgate Park and Ride area. In doing so, though, we'll also be making really key connections with Sound Transit's Stride I-405 bus rapid transit projects, and also the Link 2 line. It really delivers on our overall vision from Metro Connect, which is King County Metro's long-range vision, to really extend the reach of really fast, frequent, reliable service to all parts of the county. So this just shows a quick overview of the different alignment options that we're currently considering throughout downtown Bellevue. So as you can see, the red line indicates the overall alignment of the route. A lot of it has been resolved through prior work and our ongoing work with both cities, and we're looking to bring this to the community pretty soon, and we'll be talking more about what that looks like. And one of the key areas that we need to still resolve is what does the alignment and pathway look like through downtown Bellevue? And so these are some of the options that we'll be bringing to the community for feedback. So that's a preview of some of the stuff that we're working on right now. We've really advanced planning since we've picked up the project again quite a ways, and it's been really, again, as Amanda stated earlier, super kudos to all the Bellevue staff who've been incredibly helpful in helping us, again, realize what your visions are and your policies, but also helping us best understand how we can bring this project to fruition. And so based on all that engagement with the staff, we've been able to really solidify most of the alignment, as I've stated. We've pretty much resolved most of the station locations that we'd like to use, pending the downtown alignment issue. And we've also highlighted a slate of potential speed and reliability improvements to help buses keep moving faster and more reliable. In addition to that, we've also identified numerous multimodal improvements to ensure that people have safe, convenient access to the transit. So what does it look like to improve the ability to walk and bike to and from the stations? We're currently looking to wrap up this current planning phase at the end of the third quarter of this year, and then come back before this body with a draft vision of what the project would resemble pending this first round of community engagement. With that, I'll pass it on to my colleague, Yuvia Ellison Morales.
Thank you, Pierce. And good evening. Again, my name is Yuvia Ellison Morales. I use she, her pronouns. I'm just going to go ahead and. So as my colleague Pierce was just mentioning, back in 2019, we had our first initial phase of outreach. So we had an opportunity to engage the public. We had an opportunity to talk about what is Rapid Ride. We wanted to make sure that we understood where people were coming from and how we could, ensure that we could bring them to the table. And we had interviews with CBOs and businesses. And then, as Pierce mentioned, we were on pause. So here we are actually now in phase 2 of our engagement. And so this phase 2 is going to have a lot more specificity in the project and the information that we're sharing with community. But again, because it's been a while, what we're going to do is we're going to re-engage some of the folks that we had already tapped into back in 2019, but we're also going to start reintroducing what is Rapid Ride, what are the benefits that are coming. We are then planning on having a third phase of outreach later this fall. Once we've received all the feedback from the community, once we've worked with the technical team, and then put it back out to the community to ask, did we get it right? Right? That's basically the whole process around our community engagement. We're listening, we're out there, we're bringing the information back, we're checking back with the community. And this is something that means a lot to Metro. So here is our methodology for community engagement. So we are planning on getting the word out via website. Postcards actually, in fact, are currently being printed as we speak. We've got social media, advertisements, blog, letters to property owners as well. This is something that we are very engaged. We really want to do a good job of ensuring that all folks on half side of both the route are informed about this work. And then during the engagement process, which is June 27th through July 24th, which is pretty much 4 weeks, Our hope is to, be at as many tabling, in-person, virtual events. We've got 2 of those, one during the weekday, one during the weekend. And ultimately, so we can go ahead and make sure that we're promoting this online survey that is really going to provide the best information to our community with maps, with questions that are better geared for our team to better advance this project as we move forward. And I'll pass that back over to Pierce.
Thank you. So as far as next steps are concerned, we're going to continue our ongoing coordination with the City of Bellevue to refine the scope and understand what that final project vision is going to look like. In addition to that, we're going to really dive into the community engagement process, as Yuvia mentioned, and see how we can meaningfully take the feedback garnered from this second phase of outreach and have that manifest itself into a project vision that represents what we hear from the community, and also the technical analysis that's taking place alongside it. And that brings us back to later this year, when we'll be coming back before this body with a draft vision to present based on all of those inputs. And in that process, that'll, again, identify where it's going exactly, what the route looks like, what intersections we're stopping at, what that mix of speed and reliability treatments look like to best optimize the limited space within the city's right-of-way. How do we improve those access improvements? But also allows us to start diving into deeper questions around some of the funding and design and delivery responsibilities as we move forward. And we'll be doing this through a series of letters of concurrence and support that we've already started working with city staff on. And eventually, this will all resolve itself in some sort of agreement that maps out how we're going to continue working together in partnership to advance the project into the next phases of design. We're going slow so we can go fast later. And so this gives a high-level overview of the schedule and how these different pieces fit together. So as we stated, we want to present that draft vision in the end of the year. This shows how that then translates into us then submitting that vision, what we call the locally preferred alternative, to the King County Council for adoption. And that will, upon that process, will allow us to start the environmental process. And we'll be applying for a capital investment grant program called Small Starts, that through the Federal Transit Administration, and anticipate them funding up to half of this project. So we'll be hopefully, we're aiming for this timeline to be able to be in track to submit our rating formally for that program in the third quarter of next year. And then eventually continue through other design processes, and currently looking at a planned revenue service of 2030. With that, I'll pass it back.
Oops. Why don't you try it? Thank you. Okay, next slide. So we're seeking direction on the the guiding principles, which are in your packet. And the guiding principles will help staff evaluate options that are in the city's interest when reviewing the locally preferred alternative. Next slide. And the agenda will be looking at the previous policies that the council has adopted with regard to transit, and then go through the draft guiding principles. Next slide. The council adopted the Transit Master Plan in 2014, and it really set up a robust, bold transit vision to support the future growth of the city and development in Bellevue, and provides a really good, solid blueprint for helping make service and capital investments to make transit an alternative option here in Bellevue. Next slide. And of course, the comp plan has concentrates growth around the city's multi-use centers. The comp plan relies on the frequent transit network to connect those centers. And the comp plan has many policies that encourage the city to partner with transit agencies to implement the frequent transit network. Next. And the city council has adopted many policies that support rapid Rapid K line, the mobility implementation plan, the city's complete streets ordinances, Vision Zero ordinances and policies, among others. Next slide. And here are the guiding principles. As I mentioned, they're in your packet. Next. They'll be used by staff when evaluating the options for the development of the locally preferred alternative. Next. And we're asking that the council provide staff direction on the guiding principles. And that concludes the presentation.
Can you go back to the guiding principle slide, please?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So I'll start with you, Councilmember Newhouse, as liaison to the Transportation Commission.
Thank you. Great presentation. Thank you so much for the update and the work that's been done and work that's going to be done in the future. I really appreciate it. Exciting. Couple quick questions. Actually, let me start with the guiding principles. I've read it and reviewed it and don't have any issues with those guiding principles. Feel like it's all spot on in terms of what's important to us and staff and residents of this city. Although I will ask, because we heard it tonight during oral communications a couple of times, about ensuring that it's also reliable and consistent. While you haven't called those two out specifically, do you feel that's incorporated into these guiding principles already, or do you feel like we need to specifically call them out? Because I do believe they are important aspects to the overall guiding principles. I'll stop there before I go on to my next question.
I think that the guiding principles that were vetted by staff do all the things, some of the comments that we have received.
Okay.
But taking a look at some of the comments that we received, they could be added in to enhance it.
Okay. Well, I'd be in favor of adding specifically reliable, and I think I heard that during the presentation in terms of the amount of time that you're waiting between each bus, et cetera. I think there is a good reason to add reliable and reliable, consistent, kind of similar themes there. But I think just underscoring that it is consistent and reliable transportation. I think that's worth adding if my colleagues agreed with me. Now, a couple quick questions regarding the other part of your presentation, just in terms of the community outreach. I wanted just to touch on that a little bit. Do you feel the outreach, so right now it's more about what this could be, and then the second round of outreach is going to be, I guess, a little bit more specific in terms of the route. Do I have that correct? Okay, so I just want to know a little bit, is it going to be the same type of outreach? Are you reaching out to different members of our community and different stakeholders, both business and residents as well? I just want to know, because I think the first time around, you're going to get a lot of positives. I think the second time around, you're going to get a lot more interesting feedback in terms of the route that you select. So would really like to understand a little bit better in terms of what that outreach looks like the second time around, which I feel is the more important time around, and then how you're going to incorporate that into your findings or the preferred alternative. And then you also had in here about the local preferred alternative, so which will go to King County Council. So when you say that, is that meaning that's the residents' preferred alternative? Is that staff? Is that council? Who decides what that local preferred alternative ends up being at the end of the day?
Sorry, community engagement and good Delphi?
Okay, sure. So once again, just to be clear, this is stage or phase 2 engagement. I just want to be super, so we're sharing the same comment. But so in the first phase of engagement, which was back in 2019, that was when it was still, I would say, probably like more on a higher level, right? It was more of general conversations, like I mentioned, interviews. This time will be the first time that actually people have an opportunity to see the map, to see the route, to see bus stops. And there is still a certain part that we have questions on. The online survey is meant to ask questions that will give us a better understanding where we're at. And then once it's taken back with the technical team, then we'll go ahead and take in the feedback that we've received through survey, through email, through phones, through in-person conversations. And then I'll let that for the technical team to basically answer, but then we'll come back out and then do the third phase of engagement.
Yes, Councilmember Newenhouse, great question about the locally preferred alternative. What that really is, those are just three words that encompass what we mean by project vision, in essence. And so, as Yuvia stated, we'll be for the first time showing a line on a map with some dots showing where we think stations are going to go. What that next phase in the fall looks like, though, is okay. Now that we've heard from you this first time and now second time, and we continue working through the technical coordination at the staff level, kind of pull this all together, and we think this is what we can deliver. That packages it all together. So it's really like, okay, this is the actual alignment that we are really sticking behind. These are the intersections that we feel most confident about that meet everyone's needs. These are the preferred suite of options that we want to look at for transit speed and reliability improvements. These are the preferred improvements that we want to look at for bicycle and pedestrian access. So, every transit rider starts as a pedestrian at some point, right? And so how do we really work with the city and others in the community to fortify that? And so based on what we hear and putting that out there, we will make some adjustments as necessary to the locally preferred alternative and have to pair that with our own technical guidance as well. Sure. And so we'll work with the city staff, of course, in making those trade-offs and decisions to best interpret what we heard from the community based on the lens and their ongoing experience working with folks. And then from that, we'll be sharing that refined project vision for your consideration and the King County Council's consideration.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add a couple of points too. So we're asking everyone. So this is for businesses, this is for, as you heard from UV, we're hearing from property owners, we're sending them specific letters. We've actually modified our community engagement process so that we can ensure that we hear more voices. And then what we're driving towards is something that's going to be feasible to be funded by the FTA. So that is our whole goal. So all of these treatments, everything is meant to reduce the travel time and make us more competitive for that funding that, as Pierce mentioned, we're going for about 50% of this project funding to be funded through federal funds.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Hamilton.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Certainly very much in support of the K-line. I think for Bellevue, we import about 90% of our labor. So we need to support a variety of transportation options that make it possible for folks to get to and from work. And I think the K-line's going to help with that. I think a part of that, too, is just making sure that our businesses have the confidence to know that their workers have these options and they can present those options when they're out competing for employees. I think, too, we are really, working on our housing, have a concerted effort underway to add to our housing supply. And I think it's important to keep in mind that we're planning for transit-oriented development. And transportation options like the K-line are a critical part of that. And so you can't have transit-oriented development without transit. And so this certainly helps with that. And two, I think since, we're really not integrating the K-line with cars, I'm glad that you've talked a lot about how folks can connect to the K-line. I think that's going to be really important to focus on. So I think, really having those improvements for bikers, walkers, rollers, anyone who needs to access the K-line. We just opened a bridge in the Lakemont neighborhood of Bellevue. And on one side, we have a sidewalk, and on the other side, we have kind of a multi-purpose path where folks can ride bikes. And it is not a super long bridge, so not a super long path. But when we were there doing this project, which we accomplished in 8 short months, which was really amazing, we added in that bike infrastructure. And so I think, too, that kind of fits with what I think I'm hearing and adding that in as we go. So I think that's really smart, So too, and I think, I appreciate the collaboration, look forward to that, looking forward to how we kind of support this whole effort and working with you. Think that we, making the K-line appealing, attractive to folks, is really important. And then too, I just think for me, our mayor sent a letter to Councilmember Balducci back in '22, and this really sums it up for me. And in the letter, she said, encouraging long-term ridership growth on the K-line requires service enhancements paired with supportive land use environment, transit facilities, safe and connected pedestrian and bicycle facilities, and speed and reliability infrastructure. So that really sums it up for me, and I appreciated having a chance to see that, and I'm glad that that's been a part of our approach for quite a while. So I think too, definitely in favor of having our staff move forward based on our guiding principles and being able to send that, and as part of the, all the work you do, all the engagement work and the engagement work that our team has done, I look forward to, getting back to you with the local preferred alternative. And then too, I just think, when at the right time, I'd like to also just suggest, in addition to our guiding principles, and so at the appropriate time, I'd just
Can
like
do
to
that.
offer that. Is it okay now?
Sure.
Okay. So I would just like to see us also kind of focus on investing, and just to invest so that we can improve the multimodal access to the K-line and support our transit goals. So just love to have that included so that we have that right in front of us at all times.
Do you mind if I go next? Because
Go ahead.
I have a similar
Yeah.
request. So what I'm hearing so far from Council Member Newhouse and Hamilton is considering to add reliable and consistent and appealing, which I like that. I think that's a good word to put in here. But speaking to the multimodal infrastructure, when I look at D1 and I look at Southeast 8th and I see the little magenta lines as a multimodal enhancements, I've been there. It's bad. And I'm wondering, what are we planning to put in there that's going to make it attractive place for bikers and pedestrians to get on and off that bus at Southeast 8th, because it's not there right now. Do you know?
We can get back to you with the specific projects that we're looking at in that particular area, but I know we are definitely looking at some potential connections, but I can't list them specifically at this moment.
So I guess my question is, does this project come with ped bike infrastructure, or is that something that we have to do on our own in tandem with the K-line?
Well, that's what partnership's about.
Okay.
So we can do that together. And so what we do is when we pull together like all the different components of the draft vision and share it out with the community for vetting, and then eventually to you all, we'll have to reconcile what we can afford based on our 10-year financial plan and with what we have proposed. And so that's going to be an ongoing exercise that we do in tandem based on conversations with city staff and based on that feedback. And so if there are certain things that we'd still like to advance that didn't quite make it above the line within a certain dollar amount, I think that suggests further conversations among both parties to see how we can get those back above the line.
I think it has to go hand in hand. It really does, and we reference it. I didn't get my computer back, so I can't tell you where I saw this, but it was multimodal transportation when traveling to and from the bus stop, is what it said. And so I think part of the guiding principles, if they are not already there, should say connects with multimodal transportation systems.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be part of the whole parcel, I believe. Okay.
And we're exactly in that stage of the process, and as I had to learn through this entire process about what 10% design actually means. It actually means coming up with that project list. So if you have particular things that you would like, please feel free to communicate them. We're happy to put them as a part of the proposal. Not to, but just let us know.
I would be happy to. And really happy to see the Bellevue College connection there. That's key. Connecting that to Totem Lake and everything in between is, I think, so important. So I'm very excited. I was excited in, what is it, 2019 or something when this first came, and so I'm really happy to see it back. Councilmember Stokes, thank you for letting me go.
Yeah, no, this has been a good conversation of what we're working on, working together, and different ideas like the mayor's just talking about. I guess what I want to talk about is we're doing a lot of planning. We're having back and forth. We're talking about 2019. Well, this is 2024, almost 25, and that's a long time. And we're still. Sounds like we're kind of, we're not quite sure whether you want to go here or here, and various factors to it, I know we all do this, not saying that, that anybody does this specifically or by themselves, but analysis paralysis sometimes gets us. Sounds like we're talking about things we probably talked about 5 years ago, and how are we going to get to the goal line on this? And I think and what's happening, my perception is, a lot of these things is that we're still operating to a great extent in the way we used to before pandemic, before all this stuff interrupted things, and before the tremendous growth in this area has taken place. We've gone from, 80,000 people to 150,000 people in a very short time period. And the changes in all are happening. And it's not a saying, well, this is what government does, because people in private do a lot of this too. We individually do this. But I think it's a human nature thing is, we need to work more. We're not quite sure. Which one do you want to do? Well, how does it go? And I think what I think you presented is a really great plan at this point. And I know we've been working on that part of it too. And I'm hoping that Bellevue has a lot of influence on this. We're working together. This is a team effort, not and particularly, and really excited working with Kirkland. I think that's going to be a great, really that area and that whole is going to grow. It's going to be a lot better. So I'm just concerned that I think we know what we want to do. I think we know what we're doing. And I just want to see us actually doing it sometime in the near future. So that's my take on this, because I think the work that's been done is just amazing, both here in the city and with with your work too. So let's just let's see if we can finalize this and get it done sometime. I would sure like to be able to ride this thing sometime. So anyhow, very good work, and I think we've identified a lot of things. I think my colleagues have raised some very good questions on this. But overall, this is very exciting, having us working together like this, and it's just fundamental. There are a lot of places where people don't work like we do, like all of us do. So let's get this thing done. That's my goal, is to get it in place, not worry. We've got it pretty well laid out, and let's make it happen in a reasonable, stretch of time.
Thank you. So I'm going to kind of just go over what I hear council saying they'd like to include in the guiding principles. Reliable and consistent, appealing, connects with and improves multimodal transportation systems. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. Well, are there any other comments or questions? Could somebody make a motion, please? Councilmember Newhouse, why don't you do it since our
I move to direct
transportation
staff
guy.
to use Bellevue Rapid Ride K-Line guiding principles to represent local needs and ensure that the city's transit interests are effectively represented in K-Line planning.
Second.
And we don't need to add what we put there. We don't need to.
No, I think we've got it,
Okay,
Mayor.
thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we'll take a quick break here and come back at 25 till.
Okay.
Okay, we're back in session. We have our second study session item. Ms. Carlson, would you like to introduce it?
Council, during the 2023 legislative session, the legislature passed Senate Bill 5290, updating the Local Project Review Act. And the updates were intended to streamline and improve the permitting process with an emphasis on housing development. So staff tonight is going to provide an overview of the legislation and will be seeking council direction to initiate work to implement changes to comply with the legislation and generally to improve the permitting process. So we have from Development Services Department, Rebecca Horner, the director, Jay Kesselgesser, Assistant Director, and Christina Gallant, Code and Policy Manager. And with that, I'll hand it over to Rebecca.
Thank you, City Manager Carlson. Good evening, Mayor Robinson, members of the council. My name is Rebecca Horner with Development Services Department. As mentioned, we're here tonight to discuss the City of Bellevue proposed response to Senate Bill 5290 regarding streamlining permitting. And with me are Jake Hesselgesser and Christina Gallant from our department. We'd like you to consider giving us direction to initiate work to implement changes resulting from the adoption of Senate Bill 5290, including initiating land use code amendments, modifications to permitting timelines, and the implementation of 3 streamlining measures. Our agenda tonight is to discuss the work and research up to date on this topic, to provide some data around our current permitting timelines, to discuss streamlining measures, what the next steps may include, and to ask for your consideration to direct staff on those next steps. I'll provide some background on development services and also Senate Bill 5290. Development Services is responsible for permitting, inspections, code enforcement, and code amendments, and has been committed to continuous improvement for many, many years. And a few of those milestones that we have experienced that show how we embrace continuous improvement include our establishment in the early 2000s of mybuildingpermit.com, which is a 24/7 online permitting forum. It's a regional system in partnership with many of our neighbors, and allows people to interact with the permitting services at any time that works for them. So it's a much more efficient process when that was implemented. In the mid-2000s, Development Services Department created a 4-department model and a one-stop shop to make it a lot easier for our customers to interact with us. In 2019, we established 100% paperless and mobile permitting. And after that, subsequently, we created a customer experience program, which allowed us a forum to interact directly with our customers and then prioritize our improvements based on that feedback we received. And most recently, we established last year the Bellevue Development Committee, which is an engagement forum that allows us to build relationships, improve transparency, and have strong, robust stakeholder engagement with our customers and anybody who's interested in engaging with us on permitting services. As mentioned, Senate Bill 5290 amends the Local Project Review Act and primarily deals with land use and environmental permits, with a goal to create efficiencies and to reduce permitting timelines. It does also establish mandatory permit timelines and penalties if we are unable to meet those timelines. It was signed into law in May of last year, and the Department of Commerce did create a Commerce Committee to help us understand local communities how to implement this Senate bill mandates. And our representative is Jake Hesselgesser. So with that, I will pass it to him so that he can discuss his participation and dive deeper into our topic.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good evening, Mayor and council members. It's great to be with you this evening. And as Rebecca mentioned, I wanted to start with a brief update on what Commerce has been up to. They've been designated under this legislation to have a lead role in leading implementation across the state of Washington. Last summer, they convened a digital permitting work group who has been meeting pretty actively since that point in time. Bellevue and other jurisdictions are actively participating on that work group. The work group's really charged at looking at the benefits, costs, and barriers to a statewide digital permitting system, as well as providing feedback to Commerce as they develop guidance for local jurisdictions. Their first deliverable from Commerce is a legislative report. It's included in your agenda materials this evening in Attachment C. It's called the Community Assistance Plan to Address Residential Permitting Delays. And it's really a plan to provide jurisdictions with trained staff to review residential permits. Some of the key findings in this report include staffing challenges across the state of Washington, some pretty extreme backlogs in some jurisdictions, and then fewer planners coming out of the higher education institutes, leading to some historic record volumes in terms of planning workload across our state. The recommendations in the report include resource strategies, including pulling together a list of third-party consultants that jurisdictions can look to and perhaps enter into agreements to augment their internal staffing resources. There's a number of other future deliverables that Commerce is responsible for, such as grant programs, establishing guidance to establish reasonable fees, as well as that digital permitting report that I mentioned, which is due to the legislature in August of this year. Getting into some of the key components of the legislation, diving into the details here, these are some of the procedural and administrative components that we would be looking at when and if a council were to initiate work on the LUCA. So these would include prohibitions on site plan review for interior alterations, establishing clear and objective submittal requirements for our applicants so that they understand what's needed up front. There are some amendments to the definition of project permit, as well as some new terminology that was introduced in the legislation. There's procedural amendments for the completeness check process. This is the process at the front end where we intake a permit and make sure it has all the parts and pieces so that we can actually conduct the review. And then there are some requirements for publishing performance reports, both on our city website as well as reporting those performance statistics to the Department of Commerce. In terms of the key components from a policy perspective, really the new thing here is the introduction of a tiered framework for permit processing timelines. And just by way of background, the previous legislation set a standard across the board permit processing timeline of 120 days. The new framework includes 65 days when a public notice is not required, 100 days when a public notice is required, and then 170 days when a public notice and a public hearing are required. And these are calendar days that are being counted here, and really it's the time where the ball is in the city's court and excludes any of the time where the ball is in the applicant's court. And that's why we commonly refer to them as shot clocks. So you can think of it as a clock on, clock off approach here in terms of that measurement. As a penalty for not meeting these timelines, jurisdictions may be subject to permit fee refunds, and these could range between 10 to 20%, depending upon how far off the jurisdiction is from meeting those timelines. The legislation also lines out incentive measures to avoid those permit fee refunds and put measures in place to help streamline the permitting process. And if a jurisdiction like Bellevue were to implement 3 of these streamlining measures, we would avoid those permit fee refunds and then benefit from having those streamlining measures in place. So you may ask, how are we performing in terms of the city of Bellevue? Staff has conducted a pretty detailed analysis. Details of this are included in the agenda memo this evening. Here on this slide, we have an excerpt from that. We analyzed a data set from 2021 to 2023. 358 permits in this data set, and on this slide we have them broken out into those default shot clock buckets. So starting at the top with that 65-day bucket, we had 217 permits in that bucket. 79% of those were meeting the default timeline. In the 100-day bucket, 139 permits and 29% were meeting the timeline. And then that 170-day bucket, we see 2 permits, and both of those fell outside of the timeline. The key findings in our analysis include resource availability being the key component, very similar to what we've seen in the Commerce guidance. There are some special circumstances and complexity factors with some of the permits, particularly in that 100-day bucket that I'll talk about in a moment. The framework was based on a public participation process only and did not really consider local conditions, and the legislation does provide jurisdictions the flexibility to move some of these permits from one bucket to another, or establish new buckets if we felt that was appropriate. There are factors outside the city's control and unintended consequences, one of which would be perhaps having to refund permit fees and then not having the resources in place to process future permits, or perhaps having to subsidize that revenue through another source. And then we did see quite a bit of alignment with current process improvement efforts. So some of the things Rebecca mentioned earlier, working with our external stakeholders on things outside of this legislation that will also have a positive effect on permit timelines. So staff are recommending moving 4 out of the 24 permits that we analyzed from the 100-day bucket into the 170-day bucket. We have those here on the screen in front of you. The permit types are design reviews, master development plans, critical area land use permits, and then shoreline substantial development permits. The factors that included the recommendation here would include the size and scope of the large development projects, which are often subject to design review and master development plans. You can see for both of those, city median timeline in the data set we analyzed is over 400 days. You can also see that the applicant's time to conduct the design and respond to comments is also above that 100 days. In the critical area land use permits and the shoreline substantial development permits, we see both of those over the 100-day timeline as well, and the applicant time even more than that, so signaling the amount of time that it takes to respond to comments and perhaps bring that design into compliance. And then there are some complexity factors with those two I'll talk about in a moment. And then there are conditions outside the city's control that do affect our processing time. Some of those include projects that request departure requests or deviation from city code, taking us more time to review that request and get through the process, and also the applicant's ability to resubmit a design and comply with the comments that staff have provided to the applicant. So just a couple of example development proposals to frame kind of the scope and scale. On the top here, this is a rendering, not of a project here in Bellevue, but just really to signify what we see with some of the major projects, typically phased development, often multiple high-rise tower projects over a common podium. These are very highly complex designs, both to get through the design process as well as through the review process. Projects in sensitive areas, including wetlands, streams, shorelines, and also steep slope areas. These usually contain really site-specific conditions, and we have a picture here of Coal Creek, as you can imagine, working in and around a sensitive area. Things like habitat restoration or mitigation are factors that have to be considered. And then there's sometimes procedural complexities with outside agencies, such as the Department of Ecology, that may need to be consulted or part of that review process. So that's the calibrated shot clock approach that we're recommending. Also wanted to talk a minute about the streamlining measures. The legislation in attachment A of your agenda materials, I believe on page 13, outlines the 10 streamlining measures that jurisdictions can consider. And if we implement 3 of these, as I mentioned, we would avoid those permit fee refunds and benefit from the streamlining measures. And the way that this would work, from the time that we actually implement these measures, we would have to evaluate our performance over a 5-year period. At the end of that 5-year period, if we were meeting those timelines 50% of the time, we would continue to receive the benefit of not having to refund permit fees. If we were not meeting those permit timelines 50% of the time, one of 2 things would perhaps happen. The first would be we would default back to having to refund permit fees, or we would have to adopt additional measures from the remaining items on the list. If we were to do that, we would then continue to receive the benefit of having a safe harbor from those permit fee refunds. Staff have evaluated those 10 measures. We're recommending 3 in the resource category. These would include adoption of reasonable fees. The strategy here would be once Commerce releases their guidance on reasonable fees, we would review that, and during our annual cost of service study and annual rate update, we would evaluate that and ensure that we're in alignment with that guidance. The second one is establishing consultant contracts and supporting budget. We've used this strategy in the past, primarily in our building division, but we've not used it as broadly across our whole line of business. This would be extending the strategy across the entire line of business to make sure that we have a secondary outlet to supplement internal staff when we're going through maybe staffing turnover or having a challenge to fill a hard-to-fill position. The third strategy here would be budgeting for contingent positions to support quick response. And as the council knows, as we go through the annual rate update and two-year budget cycle, we forecast development activity and we bring forth position requests that are aligned with that forecast. And it's not an exact science and things can often change. So this strategy would be continuing that and then going a step beyond to hold positions in contingency that would only be deployed if the revenue's there to support the positions. And we would align these items and bring those back in conjunction with the budget process for council's consideration at a later date. So just a quick minute here on outreach and engagement. We've done quite a lot so far in the lead up here. We've done some regional benchmarking. What I'm hearing from colleagues in jurisdictions across the state is most, if not all, will be looking to implement at least 3 streamlining measures. Also hearing some calibration of shot clocks for special circumstances in some other jurisdictions. We will be standing up a project webpage once council initiates the work on the LUCA. We have an internal working group looking at things like process improvements and some of the stuff that's outside of the legislation. That statewide digital permitting work group, we have jurisdictions across the state of Washington and the building industry involved in that. So folks from Master Builders Association of King and Snohomish counties, as well as the BIAW are at the table. We've also taken this strategy to the Bellevue Development Committee. We've heard a lot of feedback on appreciation for transparency, also desire for more consistency and predictability in the process, so continuing to double down on those process improvements we're working on with our stakeholders, as well as some recognition that some of these permits are really outside the framework that the state set up for the public participation process. And then also working through mybuildingpermit.com and the 17 East Side cities that we partner with in that arena. And with that, I will hand it over to Christina, and she'll take us through the next steps and schedule.
Thanks, Jake. So looking forward, one of the components that we are requesting initiation for this evening is to start work on some necessary land use code amendments for compliance with the state regulations. These amendments, the actual text is all to the administrative side of our land use code. So concerning topics like our procedure for determining how an application is complete and related topics along those lines. So not changing any of our actual development regulations, but some of those procedural components, again, strictly for lining up inconsistency with state law. We will be moving forward with modifying the shot clocks, as Jake outlined, coming back with the budget process again for implementing the streamlining measures, and moving forward to work with staff to implement those measures on an ongoing basis. And as Rebecca previously noted as well, continuing all of our previous established work in continuing our process improvement commitments, even outside of our state obligations. So our schedule ahead this evening is our first study session on this topic. Moving forward, we would return for a study session on the full draft of the land use code amendments. Due to the administrative state legally mandated nature of these amendments, we are recommending council retain this land use code amendment. So we'd return for a study session in the third quarter of this year, and then return for a public hearing and action on the LUCA by the end of the year for compliance. And then January 1st, 2025 would launch our full implementation effort. So again, the direction we are requesting this evening is for council to consider directing staff to initiate work to implement changes resulting from the adoption of Senate Bill 5290, including initiating land use code amendments, modifications to permit timelines, and the implementation of 3 streamlining measures. Thank you.
All right. Terrific. Thank you very much. Let's start with Councilmember Stokes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very, very good review of this. It's also one of those things you think, sometimes it can kind of drive you crazy working with it in terms of it's. So do you feel that this is a good step forward?
Well, I think that it is a natural extension of the continuous improvement work that we've already been doing. And I think Bellevue's in a great position, especially with our collaboration with the Bellevue Development Committee, to move forward. And I believe this is the right next step that we should be making to comply with law, but also become more efficient and streamlined in our processes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm just assuming that we think that this is a good thing to do. I mean, sometimes you get in these, working on this, and you have to work on something that you really don't believe, but it seems like this is some good steps forward. It's complicated, but, it sounds like you're on the right track, and we're making progress on that, and it will have some positive effects. I assume that this is, and I've done some stuff with this years ago in some ways, and this is something that continuously, it would cause always a problem in terms of the adding into the work it takes to get something moving and everything. So the kind of situation where you spend a lot of time pushing things around in a sense. This seems to have some very positive moving forward pieces on it. And I just don't get it clear. You think that this is really a good step forward, and we're putting that in place, and it's something we can do and get this working.
We do, and that's why we have requested you to consider the direction to move us forward to the next step, which is initiate the work into our department's work program.
Okay, no, that sounds good. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's difficult on this, and everything is different. Each group coming in wanting something to happen, it's different and all that. So it is. But so you think this is really a good step forward, and I think it sounds good, and I'm prepared to say let's go on it. So I think you did a good job of both presenting it and actually explaining it, and I know Bellevue's been in the lead on this for some time in various ways. So this is something that just keeps that going.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. Really impressed with the work that you've done here. I think the permit timeline analysis is really helpful, and the fact that you're already working on some of the stuff you've learned in doing it is great. I think also, too, that customer experience survey, really impressed with that. The key themes that were revealed will definitely guide us to making, I think, some impactful improvements. And two, deepening the pool of consultant resources, making, attracting new and retaining staff, really great. Happy to see that. I think the streamlining measures you're recommending are great. Two, kudos to you. I love an agenda memo that has a continuous improvement section, so always like to see that. Thank you there. That's a really, I think, an important part of our city DNA, and I just appreciate it, seeing it emphasized. And would love to hear back in a year or so and kind of see what the new timeline analysis looks like and see how things are going. So at some point, I'll really look forward to an update, and definitely for me, I would love to see you initiate the changes that are required by the legislation. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Neuenhuis.
Thank you. This is just really, and I don't say this very often, but really great engagement with, I think, principally the development community. And kudos to you, Rebecca. I just feel like the city is so much more aligned in understanding the issues that are happening in our city that prevents development and projects, et cetera. And I just feel like we're on such a better path than we were a year or 2 years ago. And it goes beyond just the Bellevue Development Committee, but it's, the simple stuff, as Councilmember Hamilton said, customer experience survey as well. I really feel like we are making an exerted effort to reach out, understand the issues, and be a partner on what's happening in our city. So I really, really commend you on that. A couple of quick questions. Obviously, there's certain things we can and can't control in terms of how we move forward with this. One question was on the modify the shot clocks. My understanding, and unless maybe I misunderstood, was that we could not modify the timeline, right? Those shot clocks of, what was it, 65, 100, 107 days. We can't modify that, correct? But we can modify which permits we drop into those buckets. Is that correct?
I want to just say thank you for the kind words. And I think that I just want to highlight that the business services division of our department is the central nervous system that focuses on process improvements, which Jake leads. So I want to make sure that I highlight that this is a great way to honor the work that they have done, especially for many, many years. But I think that it's been a great opportunity for us to bring these things together and work with the development
100%
community.
agree. Thank you for mentioning that.
I do not believe we're able to modify those. We can modify which
Okay.
permit types move into those predetermined buckets, but I'll let Jake correct me if I'm wrong.
The legislation does allow for some movement between those buckets or to redefine or define.
Redefine them. But the shot clocks themselves, in terms of the timeline, we cannot modify.
We could create a new bucket, for instance,
Oh,
at
okay.
120 days or 80 days
okay.
or something of that nature. So we could actually define those a little bit differently. I think what I'm hearing from colleagues across the state who are contemplating this is sticking with those three buckets to make it more consistent across the state.
That was going to be my next question. It's like, are we going to have a different shot clock than Redmond or Kirkland or anywhere else?
Yep. And Commerce, when we would report on this on an annual basis, we would have to let them know, here's what's in this bucket, so that when they're comparing jurisdiction A to jurisdiction B, we're looking at apples to apples.
Okay.
And there's been a lot of discussion in the Commerce Committee about that, as certain jurisdictions have different permitting processes, right? And so you do see some differences, and they're hearing from us all right now, which has been another benefit. To your point earlier, Councilmember Stokes, I'm seeing a lot of benefit in this statewide collaboration that's going on. We've seen it regionally through mybuildingpermit.com, but this is now extending across the state, which should be a really good benefit in the years to come.
So of the 139 permits that we process in that 2021, 2023 period, how many of them would have moved into a new bucket based on the 4 that you kind of want to recategorize?
I don't have the exact number, but I think it's about half of those permits, maybe somewhere in that realm. But I could get back to you with an exact number.
Okay,
on
well, that doesn't have to be exact, but that's really going to give us a little bit of runway to address those different permits if we move them into that longer shot clock. So, and then what's really important to me is that we maintain our the recovery of our time and our efforts and our fees to process these permits. I think that's really important here. So there's no legislation in terms of 5290 that doesn't allow us, right, to increase, if needed, increase our fees in order to cover additional costs, manpower, people power, in order to address the permits. Is that correct?
There's no limit within the legislation.
Okay.
We would still be bound by state law, of course, in terms of cost recovery and what we could actually recover cost for.
Okay, so do you feel like going forward, we're going to be able to do that, though, that cost? Okay, terrific. Thank you so much, and very much in favor of moving this ahead. Thank you.
Just one comment and 2 questions. When we did online permitting, it was right before COVID started, and we were one of few cities who were able to continue permitting when everything was closed down at City Hall. So that was an amazing win for our city, and I've always appreciated that. My 2 questions are, 1, do you anticipate being able to meet the new timelines if these changes are implemented? I'm assuming that's a yes, but.
I think we're going to strive to meet those targets, Mayor. There's sometimes circumstances where we might see some of those permits falling beyond that time frame. I think with the adjustment, we're going to be more balanced in terms of the
the permits that we have in each bucket and working more towards meeting those timelines a higher percentage of the time. So, and hopefully to share more with you in the future as we evaluate performance.
Sure, okay. And then, looking at the timeline, is there a way to expedite the implementation after the public hearing? Do you need a whole nother council meeting after the public hearing? Can we do an approval at that meeting? You don't have to answer that now, but would it be beneficial to expedite it if we can?
We could certainly look at how those would be brought back. The resource streamlining measures would be part of the budget process, so final council action would be adoption with the budget process, because those would be included. So there's a couple pieces and parts in there that we'd have to figure out how to sequence, and could share more about that when we come back with the next study session item.
Okay, sounds great. Is there a motion?
I move to direct staff to initiate work to implement changes resulting from the adoption of Senate Bill 5290, including initiating land use code amendments, modifications to permit timelines, and the implementation of 3 streamlining measures.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we have one more study session item.
Thank you.
City Manager.
Mayor and Council, this is an informational item to update you on Bellevue's Transportation Capital Investment Program and also the Neighborhood Safety, Connectivity, and Congestion Levy projects. And the purpose is to provide the council and the community with information and overview of completed projects that transportation has undertaken in the last couple years, but also upcoming projects. And that's both to highlight progress and awareness of those upcoming construction projects. So we have Maher Walai, Assistant Director, and John Murphy, Senior Planner from the Transportation Department. And I believe Andrew Singalakis is also here if there are any questions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Maher.
Thank you, City Manager Carlson, Mayor Robertson, council members, and good evening, and thank you for the invitation to come here and share with you exciting news about our capital projects as well as the levy program. So, all right, so just tonight is our presentation is for information only, and we're excited, as I said, we're excited that we have exciting news to share with you tonight, and our agenda is to present an update on the capital investment program known as a CIP, focusing on major projects. Also, we'll be giving you an update on the transportation levy program, and toward the end of the presentation, some elements related to project delivery. Starting with CIP update, I want to start first by giving you just an overview on the transportation CIP funding for the period of 2023-2024. As you see from this slide here, our CIP program averages about $50 million a year in projects and programs, mostly spent on design and construction. About 44% of that spent on discrete projects, 18% on the levy program, and 37% on other programs like the pavement preservation program, our major maintenance, our traffic safety, and a number of other minor programs as well. The next few slides here, we want to share with you covering major CIP projects that have been completed recently, share with you what's under construction this year, and what's under development for construction for next year and beyond. Was recently completed project starting with the project right next door here. We recently celebrated the completion of the Northeast 6 crossing at 108th and 110th here right in front of City Hall. And really huge thank you to city staff, our neighboring partners, and our contractor. We were able to complete that project right before the two-line opening. So that was great. And really the great news too on this project, that this project won the APWA State and National Project of the Year awards. So we were very excited about that. Another project we were excited about completing was the Mountain to Sound Greenway Trail. This is the second phase of that trail. All right. Other major projects, Westlake Sammamish Parkway Phase 2 was completed early last year, and we are excited and looking forward to start the design on the next phase. Moving on to the Bellevue area on 124th Avenue between 12th Street and North Upway, we have completed the first of 3 phases between 12th Street and Spring Boulevard. And speaking of Spring Boulevard, Zone 4 between 130th and 132nd, these are the 2 street eastbound and westbound adjacent to the Bellevue 2 line station, were recently completed, and so is the adjacent park and ride along 130th. Both of these projects were completed also ahead of the 2 line opening as well. Moving on to construction, it's really exciting time when we put projects out to construction. It's really time to witness the transformation of the hard work of and effort of our communities, our policymakers, our decision makers, planners, and engineers to reality. We are very excited as well to get our last TIFIA funded projects out on construction, which is the 130th Avenue Northeast between Bellevue and North Up. We just started construction about a couple of weeks ago. And we are planning to complete construction later next year. And that will be the last TIFIA projects. And speaking of TIFIA projects, we have the 124th Avenue Northeast, Echigo Way to North Up. It's well underway, and although we're experiencing some challenges there, but the good news, construction is progressing, and we are planning to finish construction later this year. Moving on to overlay projects. So this year we have 2 major overlay projects. The first one is the 2024 overlay program, which is well underway and is scheduled for completion this year. This project will repave about 28 lane miles and will install about more than 70 curb ramps throughout Bellevue. The project includes about 7 arterials and 10 neighborhoods throughout the city. Before I go on, talk about the second overlay projects we have this year, which is the 2024 Downtown Overlay Project, which is funded by the Federal Highway Administration, FHWA. This project is currently on ad, and actually we're planning to open bids this coming Thursday. The project will pave about 16 lane miles, including paving on Northeast 8, Northeast 4th, and Bellevue Way. So while it's really exciting to talk about construction, there are several projects currently under development and in preparation for construction for next year and beyond. We have a number of these projects currently under design, and we're going to highlight a few of these projects. The first one to highlight is the next phase of Mountain to Sound Greenway, which is phase 3. This project really demonstrates a regional partnership, and thanks to you for your work and collaboration with our state and the federal government. This project is funded only partially by the city. We are funding about $3 million, and the state funded about $6.6 million, and the Federal Highway Administration funding $2.3 million, really true partnership here. The second project, which we are very excited about, is the I-405 crossing. This project is connecting downtown to East Rail. We are on track to complete 30% design by the end of this year, and we're really looking forward for additional funding to continue that design effort. I will be back here next week as part of the Grant Connection presentation. We'll give you more specific project updates and also give you information on the recent public engagement that we've done on this project. Other major projects in design include Bellevue College Multimodal Connection. This project, another partnership project with King County Metro and the college. This project will connect Southeast 32nd to 145th Place, basically connecting through the college. And the project will provide a great benefit to the traveling public and to transit, to the regional transit as well. On 120th Corridor, we are reaching final design on Zone 4, and we are exploring options for construction funding. Also working on the design of Spring Boulevard Zone 3, connecting 124th to 130th Avenue Northeast. We just completed preliminary design on that project and continue to explore options to further advance the design. Just a couple more projects to mention under development. A grant-funded project to retrofit 2 bridges on Northeast 12, and also the design preparation for the 2025 overlay program. So with that, I'm going to turn it on to John to talk about our neighborhood safety, connectivity, and congestion levy program. John?
Thank you, Maher. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm excited to share with you an update on our 2016 voter-approved neighborhood safety, connectivity, and congestion levy. This was a vote approved by the community in 2016 to levy their property value to the tune of 15 cents per $1,000 of assessed value to really build on and supplement a lot of our existing transportation programs that we have at the city. Programs to improve maintenance, to improve traffic safety, to build more sidewalk and bike facilities, and expand our traffic technology program. In addition to those 5 categories that I just mentioned, at the time, council thought it was imperative to set up a new program specifically targeted at congestion reduction, which represents a new program for the department and has kind of discrete funding to the tune of $2 million a year annually, and then approximately $8 million a year scattered across the 5 other categories. The levy came about at a time when there was tremendous growth in our growth areas, and at the same time, we had extensive project backlogs of these smaller scale projects that the community really cares about and supports. And that's really the reason for the levy coming about and the passage of the levy to chip away at those established project backlogs that we have. Some numbers for you to quantify progress to date. We have invested more than $34 million across 70 projects in every single Bellevue neighborhood since we really started work in 2017. These projects vary widely in scale from a small partnership with our overlay program to stripe a bike lane to much more extensive, complex projects, really transformational projects for our Bellevue neighborhoods, and we'll touch on a few of those examples later. In addition to the 70 projects that have already been completed, we have a robust project pipeline. We have approximately 45 projects that are in various stages of planning and design that will be continued to roll out in the coming years. Some of the recently completed projects, and I'll caveat that a lot of the project examples that I'm showing tonight are just a sample. They do not represent everything that has been done or everything that will be done. This is to give you a flavor of the types of projects that the levy is helping to deliver. Starting on the top left, this is an important connection to Bellevue High, a safety and sidewalk connection on 105th Avenue, creating a comfortable place for people to walk where there is previously not a sidewalk. The bottom left is a maintenance project on Northeast 24th to stabilize the roadway where there's fairly steep terrain to ensure that the roadway doesn't fail. And also the completed project has expanded area for people to walk across the roadway where there was not an area. Number 3 is a crosswalk on Camber Road. This is one of 10 flashing crosswalks that were created as part of a single project. So sometimes when we say we did 70 projects, there are really 10 projects embedded in each of in a single project. This package, we designed and constructed the suite of crosswalks together to realize cost savings and to minimize disruption to the community. And then an example of a congestion reduction project here on 112th and Northeast 24th helps alleviate congestion at a pretty busy intersection. And this was coupled with a broader safety and connectivity project to improve the bike facilities, to repair the sidewalk due to root heaving from trees, and add crosswalks across the corridor. We do have a lot of projects that are planned for construction starting this year into next year, scattered across the city, and I'll touch on those. The first one is our Northwest Bellevue Walkways project. This is one of those really transformational projects that we've been working on in various phases for a few years. We installed a roundabout at Northeast 10th and 100th, some flashing crosswalks at the north city limits at Northeast 24th, in addition to a sidewalk segment. But the next phase is really going to create much safer connections on a shared use path on 100th Avenue Northeast. It's almost a mile of facility. And then additional sidewalks and crosswalks on the side streets connecting to 2 public schools and 2 private schools. The Northeast 8th Street over I-405 improvement builds on a project that was voted by the community through our popular neighborhood enhancement program. There's more than meets the eye on this project as well to improve the crossing experience for people walking across the Northeast 8th Street Bridge, but also add some aesthetic elements with improved landscaping, and we're funding with our partners in community development to make that project go. 156th Avenue Southeast and Lake Hills Boulevard. This is another one of our congestion reduction projects. This is currently an always stop if you're familiar with where this intersection is by the Lake Hills Library. It backs up, especially in the southbound direction, and is a little confusing in terms of who goes when, and also if you're navigating that intersection on foot. The signal will drastically improve the operations of that intersection and improve the safety for people walking as well. This is an example of another partnership with a city program, our major maintenance program, that we're putting this project out to bid together with similar work up at 156th and Main Street. And you can expect to see that construction award on your consent calendar on June 25th. The South Bellevue Station Neighborhood Improvements Project has quite a long history. Like a lot of these projects, there's so much more than meets the eye, but this is a critical sidewalk filling project, sidewalk gap filling project that will connect into the South Bellevue Station. Where you see the yellow lines, there is not currently sidewalk, and this will create complete connections on Southeast 34th, 113th, and 112th. There's also some traffic calming that's being proposed, and we are pursuing a grant to help offset the funding of this project. The 150th Avenue Southeast Congestion Reduction Project will drastically improve travel time in the southbound direction on 150th from Bellevue College down to Southeast 38th. Lots of funding partners with this one. In addition to the levy, there's about $4 million coming out of the levy. There's a $4 million grant through the Transportation Improvement Board, and then there's discrete CIP funding as well to round out construction. This is completing final design this year with construction expected next year. The Cold Creek Parkway rockery replacement will replace 700 feet or so of existing rockery on the east side of Cold Creek Parkway. This will ensure that the slope does not slide into the roadway. And also, I know Councilmember Hamilton referenced this earlier today, but this is a great example of a project that will be forward compatible with future facilities. So the design is allowing for a future multi-purpose path on that corridor. It won't necessarily be built the entire way, but we're ensuring that it will be forward compatible in the future if that project would be advanced for design and construction. And then the 123rd Avenue sidewalk, to finish up here, is a sidewalk gap in Newport. Another great example of partnering with our existing city programs. We are partnering with our overlay program to sync up the timing of the sidewalk construction and the pavement program, which is something that we really try to do, and I think that's a hallmark of the levy. It's really provided a lot more of those types of coordination opportunities, and we've tried to tap into that to essentially realize greater benefit for the community through these projects, allowing us to do more at the same time. So what's on the horizon? We are in year 8 of this levy. We will be providing a report, a progress report to the community via our It's Your City newspaper that reaches about 65,000 households. It'll be an insert into that newspaper, and we want to make sure that the community is aware of all the great work that's being done in the community. The project pipeline, as I mentioned, continues to evolve with 65 projects, or 45 projects, excuse me, being worked on currently. One of our pieces of public information, how we share information with the public about our levy projects, is through an interactive map that'll be getting a little bit of a refresh, and we continue to try to stretch our dollars through seeking grants, and I mentioned a few of those opportunities that we're pursuing on our existing projects. I'll turn it back over to Maher.
Thank you, John. So just the last part of our presentation, just to share with you some information regarding our project delivery and some of these more kind of challenges, but I want to let you know, although there are challenges, there's a lot of work happening in how we overcome these challenges as well. So the first one, more talk about staffing. We continue to experience some challenges there, staffing turnover, and especially on the engineering side. And also, we continue to see cost increase due to inflation and material availability and the cost of material, and it's very competitive labor market, especially in the construction industry here in the Puget Sound area. On a property acquisition, it's becoming more and more complex and time consuming. It's really driving sometimes our timeline when we try to deliver projects, and this is due to multiple projects owners, complexity of our projects, trying to develop projects in already established area with adjacent businesses and needs. And the last one, I want to touch on site complexity. And again, we are building our projects in a already developed area with a lot of aging infrastructure, a lot of challenges with adjacent businesses that need access and keeping traffic moving while we're building our construction. And I'm highlighting here 124th Avenue, northeast Echigo Way to North Up. I talked a little bit earlier that we're experiencing some challenges, and we are, because again, site condition, maintaining access, traffic control to the businesses around the area, and most likely we would be coming back to you in July with further action on this project. Next, I would like just to kind of go over public engagement, and the engagement activities you see here on this slide. They are like a representative sample of the type of outreach that occurs at various stages when we basically through project development, from design all the way to construction to project close out. All projects, when they get to design, the first thing we do is Title VI report, which provides demographic profile of the project area, which kind of inform us on what type of channels and ways to consider when we do public engagement. We collect feedback during the design phases, and we may solicit feedback through survey or online open houses, through our Engaging Bellevue site, or sometime in-person open houses in the project area. Typically also, as we get closer and making progress in the design, at about 60% design, we invite community members and give them an update on the projects, and we make the project information available to them, and both we send it out and also have it available electronically. Leading up and throughout construction, we mail postcard with important information, important notices regarding traffic impacts, traffic closures, detour, and also we talk about project benefits. And we do all of that through channels such as our website, our email list, and other social media channels. Couple more slides here. I want to talk about diversity in procurement. And first, we'd like to talk about the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, which is known as a DPE. This is a federal program administered by the state, which they set a goal for us on all federally funded projects. The goals usually between 12 to 19%, which means 12 to 19% of that work need to be accomplished by DPE businesses. In regard to city-driven initiatives, we in transportation working closely with FAM on implementing a new procurement diversity inclusion plan. And council heard about that, I believe, back in May 14th. In transportation, we have 2 staff members who sit on an internal working group, and we are looking forward to participating in the implementation of new strategies to help encouraging the use of small businesses and small and diverse businesses across all our procurement in transportation. Last slide, just to talk about workforce development, and thanks to you, thanks to the council for adopting the apprenticeship program last year. The program established a minimum apprentice utilization requirement of about 15% of labor hours for public works contract over $2 million. As a result, our first contract this year, which is the 2024 overlay program, implemented this requirement. And the good news, although it varies, but as of now, we have more than 10 apprentices working on that project. With that, that concludes our presentation. Again, this is information only, and we welcome any question you may have.
Thank you so much. Any comments or questions? Yes? Councilmember Hamilton.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Certainly have a good, impressive track record with all these projects that you've undertaken, so well done there. You mentioned some projects that were funded by the TIFIA loan. I've heard nothing but good things about that loan and the value that the city has received. Just curious, do you agree with that assessment?
Definitely, we agree with that. And as you see, there are 12 projects partially funded by that TIFIA project, all in the Bellevue area. We could not have done it without that loan. And again, thanks to you and all the work you guys done to get us that loan and advance these projects.
Is that something we could do again? Could we apply for such a loan? And if so, I mean, do we have projects that would fit well with a loan like that?
We have number of projects, and you're probably going to hear about them through the budget process.
And getting a TIFIA loan, I mean, is that something we could do again, or are we contemplating that?
That's something I think our finance department will be looking at and advising on the type of fundings. Again, this TIFIA loan been a few years back. Now there are TIFIA loans available, but there are some other programs as well. And as I say, I think you will hear more during that budget process.
Great, thank you very much.
Great. Councilmember Newhouse.
Thank you. Great update, a lot of great and worthy projects. Thank you for really focusing and honing in on, keeping our infrastructure strong throughout the city of Bellevue. I really also appreciate your real emphasis on safety as well. There are a few things more important than making sure that, families can cross a road like Camber Road. I'm glad you highlighted that. That's in my neighborhood, and the speed sometimes going down those roads, which are very close to a number of different schools, daycares, parks. So sorely needed on that street, and so glad that we continue to look for those opportunities through the levy to improve the overall safety, including another one in my neighborhood, the Lake Hills Boulevard 156th light that's going to be going in there. That does back up, and when it backs up, especially at rush hour, people start getting a little irritated, and then if someone misses their turn to go, and then people get unfortunately a little bit aggressive then. And again, that's right beside Lake Hills Village, that shopping area there, right beside a number of different schools. So I'm glad that we're going to put that stoplight in there. Although I thought at one point we were going to put a roundabout there and not an actual light. Is that true, or was that just one of the potential concepts? Remind me, because I know I'm going to get this question.
Yeah. The origin.
No, go ahead.
The origin of that project at 156th and Lake Hills Boulevard was part of a broader study of two other intersections along 156th to reduce congestion along the entire corridor.
Right.
The greatest need was at Lake Hills Boulevard. We did explore things like roundabouts. The geometry of where property lines are and the slope of the roadway made a roundabout infeasible at that intersection, and that's why a signal was
Gotcha.
identified.
Okay, so we did take a look at it, but it just wasn't feasible. Gotcha. And thanks for the update on the apprenticeship utilization program. That is fantastic that we have 10 people in that program right now. So I appreciate that update as well. Thank you.
Councilmember Stokes.
Yeah, thanks very much for the presentation. And I think it's very important to do this, because these are projects over the years we've worked on and approved and moved forward, and it's always helpful both for us to understand what we're working on, what's going along, and being up to date on that. It's also something I think very important to the community to look back, and it's easy to say, okay, we're going to do these projects, we go on, and then we keep going on. And it's really great to see what we're actually accomplishing and what's going on, in different places. And it just, I think, keeps up the momentum then for doing that other places and just showing what we're doing. And it's very, very helpful. And it also gives, I think, the council a chance to look at this and say, we're going the right path, or we have questions, about it or something. And I think it's just a good good thing for us all to know what we've done and see what's been really made a lot of difference, because you can't keep up with it without this. And I think it's very important to our deliberations and seeing what we've done in the past and how that's gone forward, and giving us some information or some, sometimes some say, hey, we did it, this is a great project, we need to do some others like that. But overall, I think it's just good for the community to have this information out there and people to understand and see what we're doing, and it's just an amazing amount of work. And also, what I feel really good about seeing this is what what the staff's done, what we put in place, and how it's and learn a little bit more about what we need. It just helps us all understand and keep going forward and making projects happen and seeing how they. And it's nice to know that we've done something and how it's been effective. So it's very important to have these reviews. I appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you. I agree. Two things. With the levy, are we prioritizing safe routes to school? I know that when we originally passed that levy, that was a big priority. And I'm wondering, are we doing anything around Stevenson Elementary and Odell Middle School? Because I've gotten a lot of emails about that area for the students.
Yeah, the levy embedded within, especially the safety and the sidewalk projects, is the connectivity to schools. By my count, we've delivered about 15 projects, sidewalk and traffic calming, school zone establishment, signals to establish crossings at Highland Middle School through the levy. I don't think that there are any current projects planned at Stevenson or Odell, but I'll certainly take that back to folks that actually prioritize the projects through their respective program areas with that feedback.
Yeah, maybe we're just getting the emails. And then the other thing, I can't imagine a road project that doesn't need a bike lane and a sidewalk, And so I wonder, every time we see a road project, do we not wonder how we can add that at the same time?
I believe we do evaluate every projects we have, and we have the complete street ordinance on all our arterials. So we do take a look at whenever we have a projects to have all the elements of complete street. Now, some of the projects you may notice, they're the overlay projects where we put back, although we do look for opportunities, but a lot of times we are constrained of the existing. And but we do look for any opportunity. Anytime we have projects, before we put any investment, are there any other opportunities to include? And as John mentioned, we have a number of these projects actually within the department. It's a partnership between major maintenance, levy projects, safety projects, because anytime we have a project, we take a look at all these elements to see how we can take that synergy and apply it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think we need to have that lens because there's such incomplete infrastructure for biking.
Sure.
And that just seems like a great opportunity every time we touch the road to imagine how we might put some kind of striping in or something for bike lanes.
Right. And another example, John mentioned that Rockery along Cold Creek, how it was, again, this is under the major maintenance program where it was redesigned in a vision to allow that future bike lane.
I saw that. I appreciate that very much. Well, thank you.
Yeah. you're
Great,
welcome.
great update.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, we have 2 written reports to read at your own. One, an Intergovernmental Affairs Monthly Update, and the other one, Report of the Emergency Procurement for Public Works Contract for Lakehurst Creek Culvert Repair. It's very interesting, so I recommend you read it. And with that, we are adjourned.